This morning I did an interview on the Catholic scandal in the United States of America, going back to McCarrick, all the way through with Worrell and all the Vigano letters. And as soon as I got off that interview, I opened up my internet browser and boom, Vigano Part 3 dropped. This is his third testimony, his third letter. And so Timothy Gordon and I quickly text one another and said, hey, did you see the third part? And he said, yeah, I saw it. And we've been talking about the third Secret of Fatima, the third part. Now we're into the third part of the Vigano mysteries. And man, Timothy, this Vigano Part 3 is intense. This is the most intense one we've seen.
Yeah, he gets into outright soteriology.
Yeah, Part 2 was a little soft. He went after Ouellet. I mean, Part 1 was huge. That's the 11-pager.
Right.
This one, you see the soul of Vigano in this.
That's right. That's right. And it looked clean to me. And it looked very clean. It looked squeaky clean the more I'm seeing of the man's soul. I like the way he's talking. Knowing those. Yeah.
This is the stuff of church history. Like, this is what you read in like Athanasius or, St. Basil. Great.
Like 1,000 years later, you do. Yeah, this is real. This is right now.
Yes. So here's the opening line from Vigano. To bear witness to corruption in the hierarchy of the Catholic Church was a painful decision for me and remains so, but I am an old man, one who knows he must soon give an accounting to the judge for his actions and omissions, one who fears him who can cast body and soul into hell. How's that for an opening?
That's like round one. You come out in a couple of punches in the mouth right away. Yeah, we all like that.
I mean, this is like St. Paul level.
Right.
It's incredible. I'm an old man. He's like, I'm gonna face Jesus Christ, the judge, in a few months, a couple years. And so he's talking about, and he also says for his actions and his omissions. This goes back to you and I original analysis where we said, hey, Vigano, he was searching his conscience and saying, hey, you know what? If I don't say something about this, I could get in trouble with my Lord. That was in letter 1, and we see it all over here in Part 3.
All over. Yeah, I mean, reminds me of St. Robert Bellarmine. If a failure of righteous anger can become sinful, and that's correlative with a failure to act and omission. And you never, like you were saying before you started rolling the camera, you never hear people talk like this in the last generation, 2, 3 in the church. Failures of omission. What? The liberals in the church are stripping away at sin writ large, sin as a commission, committed acts of sin. They will want to get rid of qua sin, but this is sins of omission. That's a really high standard. And talking about sin and talking about being an old man and like, look, this is all I give a damn about is literally my damnation or salvation. Right. Yeah. And it sounds like the priest from Count of Monte Cristo. It's beautiful in a way.
Yeah. And then, then it gets even deeper. He says, a judge who even in his infinite mercy will render to every person salvation or damnation according to what he has deserved, anticipating this dreadful question from that judge, how could you, who had knowledge of the truth, keep silent in the midst of falsehood and depravity? What answer could I give? So that's paragraph 1 of Vigano Part 3. Then he goes on and he talks about, in the second paragraph, he gets into McCarrick. And he says, having reported multiple times to my superiors and even to the Pope the aberrant behavior of Theodore McCarrick, I could have publicly demonstrated the truths of which I was aware earlier. If I have some responsibility in this delay, I repent for that. This delay was due to the gravity of the decision I was going to make and to the long travail of my conscience. I think it's remarkable that we have not seen one iota of I repent from Theodore ex-Cardinal McCarrick. Nothing. Who do we see the language of repentance from? Vigano.
Right.
He says, if I delayed, I repent for that. And it's not the thing we got with Cardinal Ouellet, too, where it's like, if I made some errors, I'm sorry. Or for the mistakes I made. It's just, this is the language of the Bible.
Right.
I repent for that.
My brother and I call that language, crappy apologies that are so conditional they're non-existent. We call that an unpology. That's what we got from Worrell, is an unpology.
Right.
This is a bona fide, heartfelt, prostrated apology proper from a guy whose connection to these events is at best super attenuated.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. It's touching.
So, and then he says, I have been accused of creating confusion and division in the church through my testimony. To those who believe such confusion and division were negligible prior to August 2018, perhaps such a claim is plausible. Most impartial observers, however, will have been aware of long-standing excess of both, as is inevitable when the successor of Peter is negligent in exercising his principal mission, which is to confirm the brothers in the faith and in sound moral doctrine.
Bam. Yeah.
When he then exacerbates the crisis by contradictory or perplexing statements about these doctrines, the confusion is worsened. Man, Vigano's got an A+, man. He's nailing it.
Yeah. That is at the same time, I think we were saying this about, Sister Lucy, the way she pens her memoirs. It's understated, it's subtle, it's classy, it's not overwrought or grandiloquent in its tone, but it's hard hitting. I mean, it's good drama genre filmmaking, and it's honest. That's what we love about good drama.
Yeah,
it's great.
Yeah, I don't know. Do you want to say good drama? A lot of the accusers of Vigano have said, well, he's just creating drama in the church.
Sure.
His feelings are hurt. He never became a cardinal. He's just a punk archbishop who's trying to get his last dart in before he dies.
Sure. I mean, it's got all the appeal of, remake of 310 to Yuma, probably my favorite movie in the world. It's getting deep again, going movies on you again. But yeah, I mean, it's got the appeal of a really touching drama. But without this is nonfiction, like you were saying about church history. This is real, and his condemnation or whatever you want to call it. I will hear people in the comments section later saying that I use the term condemnation in relation to the Pope. I don't mean it literally, but his condemnatory language of the Pope is measured, and yet it's, I mean, can you read that one again, Dr. Marshall? The what he says about failing to confirm the brethren in the faith. That's
yes. So he says,
it's undeniable.
When the successor of Peter is negligent in exercising his principal mission, which is to confirm the brothers in the faith and in sound moral doctrine, when he then exacerbates the crisis by contradictory and perplexing statements about these doctrines, the confusion is worsened. So he's,
Hardcore.
Just to summarize so far, he's saying, look, I'm an old man. I'm about to die. I don't want to go to hell. I want salvation, not damnation. I searched my conscience, and I knew that the judge was going to ask me, why did you, who had knowledge of these things, he says, keep silent in the midst of falsehood and depravity? He suspects that that's what Jesus is going to ask him when he dies. So he issues these statements. He's now been accused. And now he turns into basically, let me summarize what I've said and what has happened. So this is kind of we've had, since June, July, we've had a lot of stuff hit the fan.
Right.
Here is Vigano saying, and he says, and I have taken in conscience before God every fraternal correction. Vigano says, let me restate the key points of my testimony. So this is him saying, in case you missed part 1 and part 2, here it is.
Can we talk about that a little bit?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
I want to hear what you have to say.
I'll give a summative statement first. The way he traces, the way he recharacterizes an argument, if there are any kids out there that want to be an academic philosopher or a lawyer, anyone who makes an argument for a living, he steelmans Ouellet's point of view, meaning he gives the most honest and most, if anything, muscular account of his opponent's account or characterization of his opponent's argument, and then he knocks it down, which is
Right.
always the mark of strength. He doesn't straw man it, meaning he gives a weaker account of the opponent's argument and then knocks it down. That's weak. That's what people who are wrong do.
Yeah.
People who are right, they steel man conception their opponent's argument, and then they show, even assuming arguendo, the strongest, most muscular version of the counter argument against me. Look how I prevail. Watch me work.
Which is the Thomistic way. He always sets forth the objections to his point, what his enemies in doctrine would say, gives him the best arguments possible, refutes it, and then contradicts every statement. That's a responsible, it's a traditional Catholic way of behaving. Okay,
Yes, sir.
so that's great. I love that. Now let's look at what Vigano has to say. So he says, let me restate the key points of my testimony. Number one, in November 2000, the U.S. Nuncio, Archbishop Montalvo, informed the Holy See of McCarrick's homosexual behavior with seminarians and priests. I think we need to pause here because we know that there were 2 payouts prior to him going to D.C. By saying seminarians and priests, Vigano is saying there are at least 4 occasions. Seminarians means at least 2 priests, and seminarians means at least 2 seminarians, and priests means at least 2 priests. So This is serial behavior by Cardinal McCarrick. There are currently in the world right now priests who have had sex with Cardinal McCarrick right now in those dioceses. Right, in New Jersey, maybe even in D.C. for all we know. That's disgusting. It's horrible. This was reported, what year, Timothy? November 2000.
Yep, way back.
That is 18 years ago. Number 2.
Yeah.
In December 2006, the new U.S. Nuncio, Archbishop Pietro Sambi, informed the Holy See of Cardinal McCarrick's homosexual behavior with yet another priest. That brings us to 5, at least. I remember meeting Archbishop Sambi when I was in D.C. He seemed like a nice guy. And it's good to see that he's actually reporting this to the Holy See.
Right.
Third point. In December of 2006, I myself wrote a memo to the Secretary of State, Cardinal Bertoni, and personally delivered it to the substitute for General Affairs, Archbishop Leonardo Sandri, calling for the Pope to bring extraordinary disciplinary measures against McCarrick to forestall future crimes and scandal. The memo received no response. We're seeing detail here, Timothy, that was not in part 1.
No, that's right. That's right. It's an important update.
Yeah, Vigano has not just made some general claims. He's giving us months and years in which events happened.
That's right. Yeah, and the other thing is on the. I was thinking about this. Well, first segment while you're reading the second, when he talks about the important nature of the distinction between, the homo heresy, which is widespread, and little systemic flaws, which are acts of heterosexual vow breaking by priests. He says, of course, this happens. The heterosexual vow breaking. This has always happened here and there. But it doesn't enjoy the serial self-perpetuation that the Lavender Mafia does, is and does and must continue to enjoy by its very nature. And that's big at the end of the letter. He comes to this at the end of the letter. So the serial nature, you're going through, you're keeping account, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's not only correlation here, there's causation between the way that the homo heretics work within the hierarchy. So that's important to point out, I think.
Another thing that I've read from other authors who have commented on this crisis is they've said that there is a sexual incest at a spiritual level. So it's not just that Cardinal McCarrick is hiring male prostitutes off the street. These are his priests, his sons in the priesthood. These are his seminarians who he's forming to be ordained by himself. Right? So this is a spiritual incest because the bishop is father to the priest. He's father to the seminarian. When seminarians are presented to be ordained to the bishop, the language is, Father, we present these to be ordained. That's the liturgical language. So this is a spiritual homosexual incest that's happening in the episcopate and in the priesthood, which makes it doubly horrible and offensive.
Which is not just an analogy, right? Within the body of Christ, this is a kind of spiritual literality. There's a spiritual literality to the incestual nature of this. I hadn't thought of that before this very second when you said that. That's a good point. Not just an analogy, a reality.
Right. An ontological reality. Yeah.
Ontological reality. Yeah.
Okay. So next point. In April 2008, an open letter to Pope Benedict by Richard Sipe was relayed by the prefect of the CDF, Cardinal Ouellet, to the Secretary of State, Cardinal Bottoni, containing further accusations of McCarrick sleeping with seminarians and priests. These are further accusations. So now we're getting up to 6, 7. I mean, I don't know, losing count here. I received this a month later, and in May of 2008, I myself delivered a second memo to the then substitute for General Affairs, Archbishop Fernando Filoni, reporting the claims against McCarrick and calling for sanctions against him. This second memo also received no response. I mean, keep a diary, folks, when you're dealing with this, because he's obviously got his dates right, you know? He's going back and looking into his notes. Or he's just, as some people in our comments say, he's just making all of this up. He's just a bitter guy, and he's just making these dates up.
Right.
I don't think so.
Because liars love being super specific, right? That's one of the marks of, like, come on, get real. No way. Everyone go read this if you haven't read it. Yes. He's so specific, and he's so univocal in tone. There's such a specificity to what he's saying that if he makes an error here or there, like some people were quick to point out, on very technical bases, he might have made one or two in terms of chronologies, then fine. But this is not a liar at work.
Well, I think this is his response to that of like, okay, let me set forth the chronology. Again, you could say, hey, Vigano, you're making this up to make yourself look better, or not.
Right.
So then this next point, there is a little bit of fuzziness, as you mentioned, Timothy. He says, in 2009 or 2010, I learned from Cardinal Ray, prefect for the Congregation of Bishops, that Pope Benedict had ordered McCarrick to cease public ministry and begin a life of prayer and penance. The nuncio, Sambi, communicated the Pope's orders to McCarrick in a voice heard down the corridor of the nunciature. We already heard that in Vigano Part 1. Yeah. In November 2011, Cardinal Ouellet, the new prefect of bishops, repeated to me, the new nuncio to the United States, the Pope's restrictions on McCarrick, and I myself communicated them to McCarrick face to face. This is why in Vigano Part 2, he calls out Ouellet and says, hey, I just want to say the current prefect for bishops, Ouellet, knew about this and talked to me about it. And then what did Ouellet do, Timothy?
Well, Ouellet said yes, but he characterized them differently, right? He says, he didn't flat deny.
Well, yeah, he says that there weren't sanctions, but there are restrictions.
And restrictions, and he says that he reduced them to the stuff of widely reputed gossip. Travel, gossip. But he said this was only verbal, not written, and he said,
That's kind of the summary we got from Ouellet is, I don't have any documents in my file on this.
Right.
But it was orally relayed from Pope Benedict to Ouellet to Vigano.
Right.
On the next point, June 21st, 2013, toward the end of an official assembly of nuncios at the Vatican, Pope Francis spoke cryptic words to me criticizing the U.S. episcopacy. 2 days later, on June 23rd, 2013, I met Pope Francis face-to-face in his apartment to ask for clarification, and the Pope asked me, Il Cardinale McCarrick, come? Did I say that right, Timothy? You speak Italian.
Yeah. Well, did just fine.
Right, and that means Cardinal McCarrick, what do you think of him?
Right.
Which I can only interpret as feigning of curiosity in order to discover whether or not I was an ally of McCarrick. Yeah. I told him that McCarrick had sexually corrupted generations of priests and seminarians. Let's pause there. Generations. We're talking about decades, Timothy.
Right. Two or more. And he's an old guy, so it could be up to 3, right?
Exactly.
That's a strong phrasing. You know,
the first credible accusation against McCarrick is 1971.
right? That's 3 generations by my count. If
exactly.
he's done it up, that's
well,
crazy.
According to this, it'd be 40. This statement happened in 2013, so that's over 40 years.
Right.
That this corrupt Judas archbishop has been living like this on the dime of the faithful.
That's how you stir up the taxpayers, right? On your dime. People care less about sexual corruption. They've been inoculated to that. It's on your dime. Then they start to care. That's how you stir up the taxpayers in relativistic 2018.
Yep. So the next point, instead, McCarrick continued to enjoy the special regard of Pope Francis and was given new responsibilities and missions by him. McCarrick was part of a network of bishops promoting homosexuality who, exploiting their favor with Pope Francis, manipulated episcopal appointments so as to protect themselves from justice and to strengthen the homosexual network in the hierarchy of the church at large. Final point, Vigano says, Pope Francis himself has either colluded in this corruption or, knowing what he does, is gravely negligent in failing to oppose it and uproot it.
This is careful language in a way, because you never, when somebody says something that's factually inaccurate to you, all you can do is point out it's factually inaccurate. And there are the indicia of, ill will or malice or dishonesty. You never quite know, the Lord alone ponders the heart, as the Proverbs say. So you never quite know. All you have to do is say, this is gravely wrong, probably dishonest. That makes you a liar. You're either lying or inaccurate. He says that. You're either reckless, which means, basically this is when you cross into the criminal realm of behavior, or you're so borderline reckless that you're negligent. You knew or should have known. That's the question. And he's doing this with a wink and a nod. Anyone that ever distinguishes between recklessness and negligence understands it's probably outright recklessness with a culpable mens rea, bad frame of mind, malice to do ill will. But he's being very precise here. He's just a good thinker. You can tell by the way he proceeds.
Yes, exactly. And we see a lot more clarity in Vigano's response than we do in, say, Ouellet. Ouellet had a lot more rhetoric and a lot more "how dare you" language. Right. This is just sort of, it literally is bullet points. I mean, he's bullet pointed these. I didn't insert the bullet points. This is how it came to us. Bullet point reaction. So the next section is him responding to Cardinal Ouellet, which we said he probably would when we did our video on Cardinal Ouellet's letter. We're like, all right, we're waiting for Vigano to respond, and here it is. He says, Cardinal Ouellet concedes, and by the way, everybody is rebuking us on the way we say Ouellet.
Yeah.
I'm from Texas, people. I don't know how to say these words, all right?
Yeah.
So Cardinal Ouellet concedes that he spoke with me about McCarrick's situation prior to my leaving for Washington to begin my post as nuncio. So, boom, number one, he said it to me orally. Number two, Cardinal Ouellet concedes that he communicated to me in writing the conditions and restrictions imposed on McCarrick by Pope Benedict XVI. Boom, number two.
Which you said at the time. You were like, look, this is a concession.
Yeah. Two, so we got oral and we got written. Third, Cardinal Ouellet concedes that these restrictions forbade McCarrick to travel or make public appearances. 4, Cardinal Ouellet concedes that the Congregation of Bishops, in writing, first through the Nuncio Sambi and then once again through me, required McCarrick to lead a life of prayer and penance.
Right.
Boom.
Yeah.
So this was what we said in our video. Ouellet concedes the points of Vigano. He rebukes Vigano. He says, hey, you're a real rascal for going after the Pope and causing all this division in the church. But yes, I did tell you that there were restrictions on public appearance and travel for Cardinal McCarrick. Right.
Which at the time this is what I always think as somebody, who at one time or another has made arguments for a living, philosophically, legally, that you wonder what's going through someone's mind when they're rebuked by someone like Cardinal Ouellet. When Cardinal Ouellet is making weak points and making too much concession where he doesn't mean to, and not making strong enough accusations where he means to, you wonder, okay, I don't know Archbishop Vigano. I mean, you've met him, right? I've never met the man once, and I'm wondering what he's going to come back with. He comes back exactly like, a Justice Antonin Scalia dissent. He comes back exactly how you would hope he would. What I kept thinking is, what a great arguer. What a great composer. Really, really sharp.
Yeah. So the next section is where I'm going to skip over it. Vigano just goes into the things that Ouellet disputes, and it's pretty interesting. This is like technical language. For example, Ouellet says that there weren't sanctions, and he uses the quotes, but that there were restrictions. And Ouellet says, well, this is just a quibble. Okay, fine. They're not like on papal documents, and they're not called sanctions, but it's very clear that 2 nuncios and 2 congregation prefect for the Congregation of Bishops communicated this material.
Right.
And people knew about it, and McCarrick knew about it. So it's on the books going back to 2000. We have this stuff, so it's ridiculous. So then, Vigano says, there is one point on which I must absolutely refute what Cardinal Ouellet wrote. The Cardinal states that the Holy See was only aware of rumors which were not enough to justify disciplinary measures against McCarrick. I affirm to the contrary that the Holy See was aware of a variety of concrete facts and is in possession of documentary proof, and that the responsible persons nevertheless chose not to intervene or were prevented from doing so. And then he gives some examples. Compensation by the Archdiocese of Newark and the Diocese of Metuchen, probably said that wrong, to the victims of the McCarrick sexual abuse, the letters of Father Ramsey, of the nuncios Montalvo in 2000, of Sambi in 2006, of Dr. Sipe in 2008, my 2 notes to the superiors of the Secretary of State who described in detail the concrete allegations against McCarrick. And then he says, rhetorically, are all of these just rumors?
Right. Yeah. That's strong.
It's strong.
Yeah.
And these aren't Post-it notes from just people dropping them off, or mailing them. These are nuncios, priests, archbishops, superiors and the Secretary of State. This is known, not rumors.
Right. He's not disputing a rebuttable presumption. He's not disputing a characterization. He as good as proves it right there. He's saying, no, these are written. I mean, the same as the difference between libel and slander, one's written, one's published. This is not just hearsay, which is all gossip was or reputation.
What's what he says, the next slide.
Yeah.
They are official correspondence, not gossip from the sacristy.
Right.
Love it.
Right.
I love it.
It's not debatable. Yeah.
So he then goes into, he starts talking about, this homosexuality in the priesthood and
which I think is,
in the hierarchy. You want to comment on that?
Yeah. So, man, I mean, honestly, this is the heart of the matter is what Pope Francis's involvement was in terms of, the personnel. This matters. But the heart of the philosophical topic is, and everyone out there has heard this ridiculous characterization that the mass media and the papal defenders and cardinal defenders within the church are using it's not acts of homosexuality. It is clericalism, So you see 2 guys at a bathhouse doing something of a homoerotic nature. You say that's clericalism. When my friends and I joke at this point, clericalism. I mean, but he says this. Look, I don't want to take over your reading here, but it's important. It's coming next. He says, in the accusations made against me publicly, I noticed 2 omissions, 2 dramatic silences. The first is on the victims. Yes. The second is on the root cause of so many victims, namely the role of homosexuality in the corruption of the priesthood and the hierarchy. Now, this is where he talks about its serial nature and its fundamentally anti-natural law nature. Regarding the first silence, he continues, it is shocking that in the midst of so many scandals and outrage, there is so little consideration for those who have been victims of sexual predators by those who have been ordained minister of the gospel. It's not a question of settling accounts, which he's been charged of for 6 weeks now, or matters of ecclesiastical careers. I don't care about this. I'm an old man, remember he's saying. It is not a question of politics. It is not a question of how church historians can evaluate this or that papacy. It's about souls, exclamation point. He's talking like you or me or any of our friends who we talk about church stuff with.
Or like the Bible.
Or like the Bible, which is real. I mean, that's the authority. We're just trying to parrot the Bible. I don't hear priests talk this way from the pulpit at most churches. I don't hear bishops talk this way.
No, you listen to everything that came out this past week from the Synod for the Youth. You know, you don't hear any of this.
It's not about souls for them. No, it's all Machiavellian.
Yeah.
Many souls have been put and are still in danger for their eternal salvation. End paragraph. Like, wow, this is okay. Now you sound like a Roman Catholic Christian. You know, I mean, this is all about souls, which careerism doesn't matter. You know, money doesn't matter.
It's like all of a sudden we're transported back to the 1200s.
It's weird. It's like we're all Christians.
Yeah.
Yeah. And but then, so he goes on regarding the second silence. This serious crisis cannot be properly addressed and resolved as long as we do not call things by their real name. And he's going to say homosexuality. I know my friends.
The scourge.
The scourge
is what he says.
So this is a crisis due to the plague, or maybe we're reading different translations. Plague, scourge of homosexuality in those who practice
plague?
it. Mine says plague in this thing, but either one I think suits nicely. Yeah. And again, our friends at 1 Peter 5 LifeSite News Church Militant, I think, are probably cheering when they read this because they're the only ones that talk this way. The plague or scourge of homosexuality in those who practice it, inside and outside the church, I'll add, in its motions, in its resistance to being correct. I think this is bad translation. I think it was in its resistance to being corrected. It is not an exaggeration to say that homosexuality has become a plague in the clergy and that it can only be eradicated with spiritual weapons. It is an enormous heresy to deprecate the abuse, to cry for the victims, and to refuse to denounce the main cause of so many sexual abuses, homosexuality. Yeah. It is hypocrisy to refuse to admit that this scourge, there it is due to a serious crisis in the spiritual life of the clergy and not to resort to the means to remedy it. I've never heard a cleric speak that way in my entire life. That's the first time ever, you know. I've heard good priests. That is strong. Yeah. That's all.
The next line's good too. Read that one, Timothy. The very next
I think
line.
I'm out of my dense quote on my phone here. You got it? I don't have it here.
It says, unquestionably, there exist philandering clergy, and unquestionably, they too damage their own souls, the souls of those whom they corrupt, and the church at large. I mean, this is like Peter Damian,
right,
kind of stuff going on.
Right.
It's amazing. It's very sad that we're even having to talk about this. Right. In the Catholic Church, the one holy Catholic and Apostolic Church. It's sorrowful. It's also, for those of us who have known about it for years, it's a relief to hear someone who's an archbishop and a nuncio who worked in the Vatican call a spade a spade.
Amazing. It's like music to my ears. And people say, look, there might just be two kinds of person in this world. You know, those who like, well, no matter how negative the news is, it's great to hear a spade called a spade. Yep. Some people are still reacting to this. Obviously, the partisans are the bad guys. But even some of those in the middle, I don't know, just wrap your head around that. It's good. The truth will always set you free, as he ends up quoting the Bible. But, yeah, the truth will set you free. It might be bad, but it's good to have it said clearly. I mean, yeah, it's like music to my ears.
What do you think, Timothy, where he actually addresses this false category of clericalism, where he says, it is well established that homosexual predators exploit clerical privilege to their advantage. And you have to think about this psychologically. If you're a young man, you could be 13 or you could be 18 or you could be a seminarian who's 22. You're a young man, and here's a guy who's an archbishop who's trying to do naughty stuff with you. It's, as an older man, I just think you just punch him in the face. But these are impressionable young men who have great reverence and they want to pursue the priesthood. And I'm sure it's a confusing, blindsiding moment, right? So Vigano uses the right word here, predator. And then he says, yeah, go ahead.
Let me jump in. This was the very distinction he drew in this letter where I said, this is a good mind, because it's stuff, I don't have it in front of me. He said, calling this homoerotic, vow breaking is to confuse and to conflate the distinction between a medium and an instrument.
Yeah, that's the next line.
It's beautiful.
He says, but to claim the crisis itself to be clericalism is pure sophistry. And then he says, as you just mentioned, my translation's a little bit different than your translation. It says, it is to pretend that a means, an instrument, is in fact the main motive.
Right.
Brilliant.
Right. Brilliant. I mean,
that's a good causality here. Yeah, it's great.
Right. Yeah.
So we're getting a little bit to the end here. The next line's another zinger. He says, denouncing homosexual corruption and the moral cowardice that allows it to flourish does not meet the congratulation in our times. Is that right? Congratulation? That might be a weird translation there. Does not meet with congratulation in our times, not even in the highest spheres of the church. I am not surprised that in calling attention to these plagues, I am charged with disloyalty to the Holy Father and with fomenting an open and scandalous rebellion. I think that's language from Ouellet, but I'm not sure. I didn't check it. Yet rebellion would entail urging others to topple the papacy. I am urging no such thing. I pray every day for Pope Francis more than I have ever done for the other popes.
Yeah,
I feel the same way. I've never prayed for a pope so much than under Francis.
Right.
And as I said on the radio this morning, no Catholic on earth wants this to be true.
Of course.
Do you think I want my teenage children to say, hey, I heard such and such about the Pope or such and such about a cardinal? Do you know how embarrassing that is for me as a parent to acknowledge this disgusting filth in our church? And I think to myself, will my kids grow up with a reverence for the papacy? Right. With a reverence for a bishop or a cardinal? Or will they think, oh, is he another one of those guys? As a convert to Catholicism, this breaks my heart. And it saddens me that my own children, my older children, the little ones don't know about it, obviously, but the older teenagers hear about it. They have Catholic friends. They come home and ask questions.
Yeah. What's coprophilia?
Yeah.
The Pope taught me what that is. I don't want that.
I don't want that either.
I didn't know what that was. I mean, the Pope taught us all that.
Yeah.
None of us knew that term. That's a term from the homosexual underworld. No, normal people that are trying, imperfect sinners. We don't know what that is. And I learned that, no exaggeration, from the Roman pontiff. What is going on? Yeah, of course we don't want this. We shouldn't have to say that, but it's obvious. Yeah, but we do. Yeah.
So then he reasserts. He took upon himself the mission of confirming his brothers. He's talking about St. Peter, and guiding all souls in following Christ in the spiritual combat along the way of the cross. Let him admit his errors, repent, show his willingness to follow the mandate given to Peter, and once converted, let him confirm his brothers. Boom. In closing.
Which he'd said that this is the specific failure of this Pope is not doing so, omitting to do so.
Yes,
it's an important back reference. Exactly. Infra, supra. Yeah.
Yes. In closing, I wish to repeat my appeal to my brother bishops and priests who know that my statements are true and who can so testify, or who have access to documents that can put the matter beyond doubt. You two are faced with a choice. Here's where we get soteriological again. Salvation and damnation. Here it comes. You can choose to withdraw from the battle, to prop up the conspiracy of silence and avert your eyes from the spreading of corruption. You can make excuses, compromises, and justification that put off the day of reckoning. You can console yourselves with the falsehood and the delusion that it will be easier to tell the truth tomorrow and then the following day, and so on. On the other hand, you can choose to speak. You can trust him who told us the truth will set you free. I do not say it will be easy to decide between silence and speaking. I urge you to consider which choice on your deathbed and then before the just judge you will not regret having made. Drop the mic, Carlo Maria Vigano.
Yeah. But not trying to be like a like have a wallet that says bad mofo on it or whatever. Like just being, I just would never not like someone that talks this way. I could tell I'd like this guy. That's just, people that talk this way are good people.
Yeah. I would hope if I have in any way strayed from the faith or from morality, I would hope that you or one of my friends would sit me down with a beer and talk to me like this.
Me too. That's a friend.
That's what I would want. That's what I would want. And bust my chops a little bit.
Right. Correct a wise man, and he'll thank you for it.
And this conspiracy of silence, and even Pope Francis showing silence as a virtue, and he even says that we read Pope Francis's letter to Cardinal Ouellet, how he doesn't seek to justify himself. He's chosen the way of silence, and for that I'm proud of you. Are Francis's words to Ouellet. I find that preposterous. I mean, how can you be an advocate of the truth and say that silence is the way forward? And they always point to how Christ was silent before his accusers, but was he?
Right. Yeah. They say in front of Pilate, right? The only reason Christ was silent in front of Pilate is because Pilate wasn't actually accusing him of anything. Pilate was saying, hey, I heard this.
Hey, I'm trying to get you off. Help me out.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. He's like, Christ is just like, no, whatever needs.
But we also have him saying to Pilate, what is truth? Unless you were given authority on high to kill me, you would not be able to. Right.
Right.
So, I mean, he is speaking.
Sure.
He is speaking and he is addressing Pilate. And, I think just raw silence is not at all what we see in the public ministry of Christ. When the enemies of Christ go after him, he talks back.
Sure.
He's got some pretty strong words. John the Baptist is the same way. Yeah. John the Baptist is the same way. He doesn't just say like, put his head down and walk off.
Right.
He's there.
Yeah.
So even on the cross, he has the 7 last words.
Right.
I mean, let's just take a moment back and go back into our Christology as Catholics. There's the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit. When we speak of the Son, we speak of the Logos. What is the Logos? It's the Word. He is the Word of the Father. He's not the silence of the Father.
Right.
He is always the spoken word of the Father. He is always communicating truth. Right. Right. Not receding in silence. There's always a pushing forward. There's a masculine pushing forward, right? Right. From the heart of the Father out. A generation, we call it in theology.
Right, and you get this from family and friends. I'm sure you do, because I've gotten to know you a little bit. I do all the time. Why are you so confrontational? On issues inside and outside of the church, why be so confrontational? There's a difference between confrontational and combative, right? The rational word, like you said, in the manly virtues is pushing forward, always pushing toward the truth. Doesn't mean you always want combat, but you have to always speak and speak plainly. That's another thing Jesus says. Let your yes mean yes. Anything else comes from the devil. So the rational word from Christ absolutely is associated with the ideal man, Jesus, and what men, in terms of in terms of manly virtue, are supposed to do. The other thing with Pilate, you raised like 4 good points in a row there that had me thinking. With Pilate, again, the silence was, hey, this is a crass jurisdictional issue. This comes from the Lord, not from, a little procurator. You're weak need, baby. Like we don't need to talk about that. He was not being silent, though. Even then, he was putting him in his place jurisdictionally. He's just saying, look, you're not really accusing me. I'm not really defending myself against you. Pilate looks like he kind of likes him. Totally different. Yeah. Totally different thing.
His curiosity is piqued with our Lord.
Right.
So, and we need to remember, Pilate did not have any accusations against Jesus. If you read through the Gospels, he's kind of like throwing him a bone, like, hey, let's clear this out, and then, okay, I'm not going to kill you. I'll just scourge you. Maybe they'll accept a really horrible scourging. Maybe that'll appease them. So Pilate is not coming and saying, you're wrong. Your claims about, the Hebraic prophets and messianic fulfillment are off.
Right.
or you're committing sacrilege, or he doesn't even say, hey, you're putting yourself into competition with Caesar back home in Rome.
Right.
So Pilate is not bringing any accusations or criticisms against Christ. And I think for the Pope or for the defenders of the Pope to say, oh, look at Pope Francis, he's just like Jesus. He doesn't even speak to his accusers. I don't think that's correct. In fact,
he's pleading the fifth. Yeah.
Yeah. In fact, when the high priests start accusing Christ, Christ quotes Daniel and says, behold, you'll see the Son of Man coming on the clouds, which is one of the most messianic and the claims of the deification of the Son of Man, receiving the kingdoms from the Ancient of Days. And what do the high priests do? They rip their sacred robes, garments, their vestments, right? Blasphemy.
Right.
So Christ isn't just sitting there quiet with a dunce cap on. He's delivering some pretty profound theology and quoting the book of Daniel, one of the greatest prophets, for his divine messianic claims. So, people watching, don't buy into this that, hey, when you're accused, you just stay quiet and that's somehow the holy way. No, that's the virtuous way. The way of virtue is to bring about clarity, especially when your divine vocation from God is you're the vicar of Christ, and you're, as Vigano says, you're to strengthen the brethren by clarifying faith and morals.
Also, if you on the same note, if you watch mob movies, people, and someone pleads the fifth, that's not a good sign. That means they're guilty. Right. I mean, that's not a sign of Jesus. That's a sign of bad things.
Yeah. So, all right, let's close up here. Where are things going to go from here? We've seen Pope Francis. He's sort of dispatched the Ouellet, right, as a response. We've seen, some of the lower defenders, in the Twitterverse and in other places, and in some articles, and also Cardinal Supich, Cardinal Ouellet, have come to his defense, and they've discounted Vigano. So what's going to happen next? Do you think we're going to see another archbishop, another prefect come out and, crash, into this?
I don't know.
And are people going to lose interest? That's my other worry. Is like, oh, here's another Vigano. Oh, we got Vigano Part 7.
Right.
It's kind of like Rocky. At a certain point, like when it got to Rocky 4, you just don't care anymore.
You want Ivan Drago to get his due, and now they're bringing back Ivan Drago's son.
That's right. Yeah.
You don't want to see him crush anybody, as he promises. I do. I have the pretty identical concerns as you, obviously. I'm always worried. Never underestimate the American public or the Western civilization public's ability to snatch defeat from the jaws of victory, right? But just with their, no offense, people, this is my anti-populist streak, with their 9-second attention span, keep on this, people, this matters, don't be desensitized. Yeah. I'm paranoid about that. 2, I'm a little paranoid. You and I have talked about this. It's not paranoid. I'm a little dodgy. I'm a little nervous that Vigano doesn't have anything under the hood. I think you think this.
What do you mean by that, under the hood?
I hope he's got some. I hope he's bluffing, and he's trying to force them to.
Wait, you said you hope he's bluffing?
I hope he's not bluffing.
Oh, okay.
That he does have something there that can force the criminalization of these matters.
At this point, it kind of feels like, I hate to say it, he doesn't.
That's what I've been. That's what I've been since letter 1.
I think he's given us all. He's put all the cards on the table. He's documented. And that's why in Vigano Part 2, he says, "Hey, I want to, give a shout out to Ouellet,
right?
What you got, Ouellet," and Ouellet shows what he got. But now he just kind of says, it's sort of this desperate plea at the end. In closing, I wish to repeat my appeal to my brother bishops and priests who know that my statements are true and can so testify, or who have access to documents that can put the matter beyond doubt. So I don't know. I think if he had more documents, those things would be scanned and published as PDFs already. I think he might, since he's left the nunciature and left the Vatican, he may not be able to go into the drawers or into the files or download PDFs. I think
he can.
I think he's sitting out somewhere. I think he's, I don't think he's in the EU. I think he's outside the EU. But I think he's sitting somewhere and he's like, man, I need some brother bishops to help me out. I've been going for weeks.
Right.
And
I agree.
Very
I
few.
agree.
When he first came out, a lot of bishops supported him. Not a lot. I'd say 12, 15. And then all of a sudden it's been real quiet since then.
Right.
You
Right.
know, you can hear the crickets.
I agree. I mean, I have friends, and you do too, that when you talk about this, they think he's got something under the hood that hey, I want to make them, show their own cards, and I'm giving them the chance. I'm like, what? At this point, that would have mad style or whatnot, but it's like, who cares? Just show what you got. So that's what I thought since letter one.
You thought that he did have something?
I thought he didn't have anything, and everyone seemed to think in letter two would be the show, the tell all, and I'm like, nah, I would have just done it in letter one, because he knows. I mean, I don't know. He doesn't know what's going to happen, but anything crazy could happen at this point, and we're beyond the pale. We're through the looking glass. He's on the run. He says partly for his life. So you would put it all out there. I hope. Yeah. I hope I'm wrong. I really hope I'm wrong, but I don't know where to go, and I don't pretend. I make predictions when I have them, but I don't know where it's going to go. But it remains interesting. People don't get desensitized. Stay tuned is all I can say.
Yeah, exactly. You know, we heard maybe a month ago that the dossier, the red binder dossier that was given by the three cardinals to Pope Benedict XVI and then was allegedly handed over to Pope Francis, that a copy of that dossier was going to be released. I don't know, Timothy. I think that was fake news.
I think that was too.
If somebody has it, they would have already dropped it, is what I'm thinking.
Afraid so.
And if it did exist, I think Vigano would know that there's another copy out there, and he would be whoever that is, just as he called out Cardinal Ouellet. I think he would say, hey, Cardinal so-and-so, you've got the dossier. Go ahead and scan that up to Dropbox and let everybody see it. But that hasn't happened. So,
afraid so.
You know, and the paper shutters may have already fired up within the Vatican walls. Who knows? I mean, these are digital documents, and it's so easy to drop a thumb drive in there and get them. Does Archbishop Ganswein have a backup copy on a hard drive somewhere? I don't know. Does Pope Benedict have a USB in the drawer that has the dossier on there? I don't know, but it's going to be interesting because there's nothing new really in this part 3 by Vigano. I mean, he gives us some more specificity on the timeline, but there are no new claims. He basically just covers what he's been accused of and brings out some distinctions in the Ouellet letter, but there's nothing new. So we'll see where it goes from here. I think the voices in Rome have seen this already, obviously. I don't know if they need to make a response or what they would say, other than, you're still making stuff up and you're attacking the Pope, and that's not very nice.
Right.
And the Pope is like Jesus. He doesn't respond to these things. So have a nice day, Vigano.
Right. It's the dubia of 2016, 2017 with slightly, hopefully moderately more public interest. But I don't know if that public interest will hold. I do not have confidence in the public. And that's it. Like I said in another video we did, it's the gladiator situation. You need the masses to rise up and to demand something. And it's a close call. It's going to be very on the fence whether there's critical mass to force it, because people have that all damning forgetfulness and unwillingness to perdure in their interest.
Everyone, even people who are interested in this topic, have pretty much forgotten the dubia. No one's calling. No one's saying, "Hey, Holy Father, answer the dubia. Answer the dubia." No. It's dead.
No, that story, you and I aren't saying it. Yeah,
that story and that appeal is dead. And my worry is a year or two from now, people will be like, oh, yeah, that Vigano guy. How many testimonies? He put out 3, 4 testimonies.
Right.
I don't know. So I guess the only game changer here would be in the second to last paragraph, if brother bishops and priests who know more will step out of the darkness, get into the spotlight and say, hey, I actually have this on McCarrick. I have this on Whirl. Or I was in this meeting with Pope Francis and these things were stated, or I have the dossier and here it is. If someone steps up and does that, then this thing's going to just keep on going.
If any of those brother bishops are watching this, we need a Shia LaBeouf moment, like, do it, you know? Do it.
Exactly.
Be your best self or whatever he's saying. Come on. The guy needs help. Confirm him. Get real. Come on, they're men. These might be partly effeminate men, some of them, but it's like, come on, just man up and do it. The way Rod Dreher put it, man up and do it.
Yeah, do it. And there's cardinals out there, several that come to mind that could do it. They just need to have the info. They need some info.
Right.
So
and some chutzpah. Some chutzpah.
Yeah. So we'll close up as we always do. Listen, don't lose your faith on this. We believe in Jesus Christ, second person of the Trinity, eternal Logos of the Father. He is providentially in control. We have access to the Mass, to the sacraments. We have the intercession of Our Lady, the saints. So much is in our favor, right? He's taking care of us with his mercy. He's going to guide us in salvation. He's the good shepherd. He knows how to get the sheep home, even in this crisis. So don't lose your faith. Keep on keeping on. Pray the rosary. Go to Mass. Be great parents. Be great priests. Live your vocation. And tune back. We'll keep doing videos as these things keep coming out. There's the bell. We should probably wrap it up. But also, if you like these, please like, subscribe, share these videos on YouTube and Twitter so people can get information, learn about more of what's going on. Yeah, subscribe, like, tweet, Facebook, etc. So, Timothy, again, thanks for being on. Thanks for your analysis and your commentary. I'm sure it's helpful to a lot of people. We'll do it again.
Thanks.
All right, bye.